Carbon fiber pole, nasty bait hanging off a hook. Fishing. Everyone has done it, and if you haven't, by the end of this presentation, you will be ready to grab a pole and go. There's many different types of fishing as well as many different methods, such as traditional, fly, and even ice fishing. But you can find which best works for you by trying all of them. Let's dive into what traditional fishing actually looks like. Traditional fishing is any small-scale commercialized fishing or family fishing used with a rod, a reel, bait, and often used nets and tackle as well. Traditional fishing is actually the most common throughout the whole United States, but not only the United States, it's common throughout the whole world. It was actually stated by CRATS in 2017 that traditional fishing was the most utilized type of fishing by commercial fishermen until live bait came along in 2016. You can fish anywhere with this using this fishing method. You can fish in salt water in Tampa Bay area, or you can fish in freshwater in Lake Michigan or in upstate New York. The only difference between fishing in saltwater and freshwater, for example, is the bait being used in the method of fishing. Not even the method of fishing, more the style of fishing. The style of fishing is being used is in saltwater. You want to have those heavy carbon fiber poles to get that fish out of the water as soon as possible, because they are a good fighting fish and they will fight you to the end. Freshwater fish, you want to have more of a light action medium rod, because even though they will fight you to the end, they are a little bit more of a less aggressive fish, and you can have a little bit more fun with them while reeling them in. The bait being used is different as well. In saltwater, you're going to have lures that imitate a predator fish's natural diet, as well as many different soft plastics. And for live bait, you will have shrimp, squid, you can even have greenbacks. But these lures right here will imitate exactly what a greenback is, because when it's swimming in the water, it's catching the predator's fish attention, and that predator fish is going to come out and see what's happening with this fish. There's many different baits for freshwater or saltwater, but for freshwater, they're mostly soft plastics, like this one, that imitate a worm or a small fish with their tail, and will swim in the water and get that fish's attention with that red tail. However, there's many different worms. You can use worms, night crawlers, sand fleas, anything that is in their natural diet. When you're targeting fish, you want to make sure that you go after their natural diet. This doesn't mean you can't use saltwater bait in a freshwater lake. This just means when you are targeting a fish, you're going to want to go after that fish's natural diet so you get the best results of catching that fish. Your target fish when fishing in saltwater is snook, red drum, sometimes shark, and sheephead, mostly. When you're fishing in freshwater, your target fish are going to be trout, salmon, walleye, sunfish, bluegill. Those are mostly the targeted fish in freshwater. No matter where you're fishing, you're going to want to abide by your state or country's mandated laws. These are laws set in stone for you to follow that help the population of fish, so you don't catch too many fish in a day, and you don't catch undersized fish that are still juniors and juvenile fish that need to grow up and get to a mature size. You can find their state or mandated laws anywhere on any government website. Ours is mandated by the FWC. FWC is the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation. They stated in 2019 that the FWC's responsibility is to manage and keep and protect the fish and the wildlife for a long-term well-being of the people and the ecosystem. This means that if you don't abide by those laws, FWC will enforce those laws for you and could write you a penalty against the ecosystem and against these laws for a ticket or even time in jail, depending on how long you've done it. Do you have the patience? Fly fishing is a very contracted type of fishing. It takes a lot of patience. It was actually stated by Fishing Basics in 2019 that your goal when fly fishing is to create and mimic the predator fish's natural diet, such as a hurt fish. The difference between fly fishing and traditional fishing is traditional fishing used more as a heavy-duty pole. It's more common to use a heavy-duty pole to get those fish out of the water. When you're fly fishing, you're going to want to use the lightest material possible, such as the lightest pole, such as the lightest bait. When you are are fly fishing, you are going to want to use a light rod to be able to flick that bait out there. When you're using a fly, the flies are only this big. In fact, I have one right here. The fly is super small and it is super light. So when you are fishing, you want to be able to flick this lure out as far as it can go. So positioning is a good one between the differences. When you're traditional fishing, you're just sitting casting. When you're fly fishing, you're going to be wanting to get in the water, or at least on the shore facing the river or the stream coming down. You're going to want to throw it against the current. This is because when you are covering the greatest amount of water, you are more likely to catch that fish that you've always been wanting to catch. So you are going to stand upriver facing the current. You're going to throw it as far as you can. You're going to watch it hit the water about, say, 50 meters ahead of you. You're going to watch it float down the river. You're going to watch it float down the river. Once it gets to 100 feet, you're going to want to start reeling. Don't reel too fast, because everybody's common mistake is to reel too fast, and the fish won't be able to fight the current. Real slow, so you can still have that fighting chance of getting that fish. The targeted fish while you fly fishing is trout, salmon, and walleye. Do you like the snow? Ice fishing requires a very cold place, such as a frozen lake or sea. This doesn't mean that you can't ice fish in the saltwater or the freshwater only. It is common between the two. You can fish in the salt waters of Alaska or the fresh waters of the Great Lakes. In my opinion, this takes the most amount of time because it's not just a day event. You're not going to go out there just to fish for a day or a couple hours. This is going to be a weekend event, only because the equipment being used is much different than any other type of fishing. When you are ice fishing, you're going to need to break the ice. It means you will have to take a drill and drill a hole through the ice. This minimizes your space, really. So when you're fishing, you want to have a 2 to 3 foot rod, a good heavy line, monofilament line of 20 pounds or plus, and a good lure or bait to fish with. It was actually stated by Fishing USA Basics in 2019 that the best type of lure and baits while fishing is jigs, spoon, and soft plastics because it imitates the hurt fish in the water. These predator fish are more aggressive in this time period and are going to go after those hurt fish 10 times more to find their next meal. Your targeted fish while ice fishing are walleye, northern pike, and often called muskie. Now that we have focused on the 3 types of common fishing, traditional, fly, and ice fishing, you can find which best works for you by trying all of them. Fishing is not only a way to relieve stress for my case, but also gets me out in the water on this time that we need in the virus that we have going today. It also gives me a chance to catch those exciting fish and not knowing what I'm catching until that fish hits the top of the water. My recommendation of where to fish in the Tampa Bay area is off of Madera Beach. Madera Beach Middle, right underneath that bridge, that bypass going across to Madera Beach. Underneath that bridge at a high time, using the traditional fishing method, your target fish would be snook, red drum, sheep's head, and often sharks. These are just some pictures from that bridge. This is a sheep's head, very nice size, in the limits. That's about looks like a 16-inch sheep's head. There's also a smaller fish that you can catch, such as a dogfish or a sea bass, a mini pinfish. And as far as freshwater fish goes, these are some walleye that I've caught last summer. I'll catch you out on the water.